Good morning all and welcome to the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday the 7th of July 2021. I'd like to now call the meeting open at 9 a.m. and open the meeting with the Lord's Prayer. Our Heavenly Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In terms of requests for leave of absence, just like to note that our CEO is away on leave, so I move that leave of absence be approved for our CEO. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Those in favour, carried unanimously. And I'd like to welcome Madam Acting CEO to the chair for these 2 weeks. Very much looking forward to working with you until we see our CEO return. Now I'd like to call on Councillor Duff to provide the recognition of traditional owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd also like to acknowledge the fact that it's NAIDOC week this week, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka people, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to let everyone know that we are holding a celebration on Tuesday of next week. We have the Star of Taroom is going to be in Kingaroy, which is a rock that has got Indigenous markings on it, and it's travelling through from Brisbane to Taroom, and it will be in Kingaroy on Tuesday. So there'll be the rock will be in the forecourt from 10 till 12. So we're going to have a celebration around that. So I just want to flag that, and hopefully everyone will be able to come along to enjoy the NAIDOC celebration, and particularly having a look at that rock, which I think is going to be fairly spectacular. And I've also asked whoever wants to, if you're energetic, to actually walk with the rock to Rarullan. So it's 16 kilometres. You can just walk part of the way, or you can walk all of the way, depending on how fit and energetic you feel. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Committee members, councillors, anything to disclose to the meeting in relation to the agenda? No. 5.1, minutes of the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting held last month on the 2nd of June can be found at 5. We have those there. Do we have a mover that the minutes be received? Councillor Duff, thank you. Second, I think Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Any business arising before we move on? No? Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on page 11, I had a... it's 6.3.2. It was about the Kingaroy Transformation Project, just the parking. It's a report to a future Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting regarding how many car parks are being lost to garden beds and how many car parks are being lost due to geometry. Just wanted to ask General Manager Meehan what's happening with that particular report.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So we'll have that information available today for Council. So we've received an email from the Mayor. We believe we've got most of those questions. So if the Council was happy, I'll run through the parking as part of the KTP program, and we can walk through those parking numbers if that was suitable.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thanks, General Manager. Happy for that to happen. Let's wrap all that up as part of the KTP update report, similarly to the written confirmation on deliverables. I think that was in there as well at 6.3.3. So I imagine you'll address that at the same time in terms of where we go moving forward with that. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on now then to 6.1, which is the Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report. Can be found at 17. It's now my pleasure to call on Councillor Jones, sorry. Councillor Duff, you'd be no good doing the roads report, would you? Councillor Jones to deliver the report. Thanks, Councillor Jones.
No worries. Thanks, Mr Mayor. And just following on from Councillor Duff's comments there about NAIDOC week, I'd like to acknowledge that. And just as important to me, my darling mother turns 80 today, so I'd just like to acknowledge my mother in the chamber today on her 80th birthday. So I'm sure she's had nothing bad to put up with in a lifetime. So we'll just move on now. Okay, our Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report for the the month of July. The following are current planned works for June and July. Information updated as of the 15th of June. Our capital works program, Alfred Street in Kingaroy, curb and channel upgrade, Blackbutt pedestrian bridge replacement that replaced Timber Bridge across Taromeo Creek. That's well and truly underway and looking forward for that to be completed. Bramston Street, Wandai curb and channel upgrade, also going to be another major improvement throughout our town streets. Bayee Road, Wheatlands, widen, seal and overlay between Flats Road and Mondure Wheatlands Road. And I have a regular update from a resident up there, and he tells me that they're doing a very, very good job now, but we do need to go up, and I've mentioned it to our manager in regards to a couple of side drains on the side of the road that we just need to put some rocks around. I'm sure we'll do something around that. Cobb Street, Mergen, curb and channel upgrade. That's should be getting close to being completed. Gibb Street, Nanango, curb and channel upgrade as well. Haley Street, Kingaroy, construction of a footpath from Jarrah Street to Fisher Street. Now, I've had comments around that. Why are we doing it on both sides of the road? Well, that footpath will carry a considerable amount of traffic right the way through to the netball courts and the park up there on the corner. Kingaroy Transformation Project, the Kingaroy CBD upgrade, continuing through, and it's starting to take shape down there in Alfred Street. Mergen High School Pedestrian Refuge, upgrading school pedestrian facilities. That should be completed towards the end of this month. The Nanango Pedestrian Bridge replacement, replaced Timber Bridge near the Nanango State School. Bridge installed, concrete approach is underway. I believe that's very close to being finished, and that's a massive improvement for the mothers and children to get across from Pioneer Park into the school. Town, village and entry signs, installation of new entry signs for towns and villages. We should be getting close to being completed. I've had some wonderful feedback on those. Just a couple of little signposts as we're driving into some of the towns that need to be taken away, I believe. We'll talk to some of our staff in regards to that. It just takes away the real impact of those signs going into some of our towns. Our state-controlled roads, vegetation clearing, various sections of roads currently on Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road, currently underway. Williams Road, Banark, an upgrade from unsealed to sealed standard. That's been a long time coming. We also gravel resheet and heavy formation grades. We've got Harshes Road. These are all gravel resheets. Johnston Road, Lucas Road, Morris Road, Nistram Road and Oberleys Road. Our patrol grading. We've got a number of listed roads there. Everyone can see them. Anyone that's watching the live stream, you can go onto our website and have a look at all this sort of stuff. Barkers Creek, Bowie, Chapinga, Geelong, East Nanango, Glen Devon, Hodgeley, Ironpot, Marshlands, Nanango, Sandy Ridges, Silverleaf, and the list goes on to South Nanango, Stonelands, Wheatlands and Warudin, and there's a whole heap of roads that'll be listed there in those particular areas. Our roadside slashing and boom mowing, again a huge list of roads that we're currently underway. Areas, Abbeywood, Alice Creek, Balogie, Boondoomba, Chelmsford, Cushney, Ellesmere, Hodgeley, Kingaroy, Kinleymore, Cumbia, Speedwell, Storworth, Tabinga, Tarong, Tingura, Wandai and Warulin, the Sports Ground Road, East Warulin Road and a few other roads down there. Our completed works for noting as up to the 14th of May. The capital works of Mergen CBD, the footpath upgrade in Lamb Street, Mergen stages 2 and 3 have been completed, or just having the final touches for completion done on them. The Nanango Butter Factory Park upgrade to car park facilities. And there's some photos that you can see further in my report that you can also view on the website. And if you go down, if you live in Nanango or you're driving through, please go down. It makes a hell of a difference to the Nanango Butter Factory Park, which Councillor Froloff has worked very hard with the community to get a great result over there. Niagara Road, Boyneside, rehabilitation of existing seal and drainage construction, final bitumen seal completed. That also has been a long outstanding issue, and we're getting on top of that out around Niagara. There is some other roads that will be addressed in the patrol grading and gravel resheeting in the future. Rural Road Nanango, upgrade to bitumen sealed standard. Our gravel resheeting program, Chinchilla Wandai Road, Grindstone School Road, Neil Road, Peterson Drive, Barsby Road, Millar Road and Hillsdale Road. And our patrol grading, Boyneside, Chapinga, Charleston, Cloyner, Corndale, Glen Devon, Glenrock, Goodger, Katoba, and a few other areas, Memorandum, Nanango, Silverleaf, South East Nanango, South Nanango, Windra, Warulin, for Rudin. And then there's a whole heap of roadside slashing and boom mowing that's been completed. Again, there's a full list there. And we just go over to the end of my report. You can see that the Nanango Butter Factory car park upgrade, the Nanango footbridge, and the other one, Williams Road in Banarkin, a long time overdue. That's almost, well, halfway through and will make a hell of a difference. So, Mr Mayor, I would like to move that my roads and drainage portfolio for the month of July be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Freiloff. Right, any questions, comments? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wanted to thank the staff for the road works team for Cobb Street. I know there's a lot of happy people. That curb and channeling there's been very ordinary for a long time, so I'm really pleased that that's happening. I just also wanted to mention that I bumped into a customer out the front before, and he brought it to my attention. He said there's lots of potholes right around the region since the rain. And I came through the Memorandum Gordon Brook Road this morning, and it is really, really bad. It's probably the worst I've seen it, with potholes everywhere. And I just wondered, I didn't see it here on the list, so I just wanted to flag that Memorandum Gordon Brook Road is very, very ordinary. And also, I just wanted to also say that and I'll send through a customer request if necessary, but the Proston Badooma Road, which is a main road, needs the shoulders done. So I just want to flag that, but particularly the potholes on that Memorandum Gordon Brook Road. Thank you.
Did you want to reply to that, GM?
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. Yeah, thanks very much for the comments on Cobb Street. Obviously, we had a look at that road some time ago, and it was very much due for repair. So I think it's great that we've got a combined program that does both the surfacing and the curb and channel at the same time, so residents get a refurbished street. Just with those, Memorandum Gordon Brook and the Proston Badooma Road, we'll just make a note of those and lodge them in the CR system, if that's okay, Councillor, and we'll look to get them inspected. Obviously, potholes are out and about on the region again. I saw some on River Road when I was coming back from Bunnings the other day in different places. Well, I think we had 50 mil, and I think out of Bye had up to 100 in some places. So obviously we've got some wet weather around. We do have some potholes around. The teams are working very hard to try and correct those. It'll be a few more weeks again for us to get through that program, but again, I think some of the treatments I've seen and the fact that we're programming those machines to get through maximum amounts we're improving in that process. So look forward to hopefully the team getting through those in the next month or so. But encourage anyone, if they do have a pothole, either council or ratepayer, please get in contact with us and let us know. We're very, very busy at the moment, so the more inspections people provide to us, the easier it is for us to get those programs together.
Yeah, thanks, GM, and certainly if anyone's watching for those who are watching the live stream, including the media, if we can get the word out there that we understand there are potholes that have come up again as a result of the rain, as they always do. That's what happens when you get heavy rain in a short period of time. We have had significant rain between 2 to 4 inches across the region, as our General Manager's pointed out. So, as happens at every region, the potholes appear after the rain. And if you do see potholes, as our General Manager's indicated, please report them to Council. It's just simply a matter of phoning Council and reporting it on 41899100, or alternatively shoot an email in to our front desk, or use Snap, Send and Solve to take a photo of it, as I do, and send it into the customer request team, and they'll make sure that the infrastructure guys are aware of it, and then they'll build it into their program and get it done as soon as they possibly can. So, yeah. And so, or ring Councillor Jones. His phone line is his phone's always on, so feel free to ring a portfolio to Councillor Jones, and he can certainly submit that for you. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, very good. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, thank you, Councillor Jones, for your report, and may I wish Mrs Jones a very happy birthday. My husband talks very fondly of Mrs Jones, best teacher that ever was at Banarkin State School, so I hope she has a lovely day. I just wanted to acknowledge the Hayley Street footpath crew, the incredible crew that poured that concrete. I drove past earlier on a couple of mornings in the dark. They were there. In the rain, they were there. In the freezing cold, they were there. I'm not sure who we used, whether it was a combination of our workers and local TP concreting. Thank you for confirming that. Just wanted to acknowledge how incredible that job was. It's really looks quite schmick. And you know how much I love footpaths. I know how important they are to a community like ours. So thank you for that work. I just had a couple of questions in relation to that. I know when Councillor Potter and I went for a walk to see where the footpath was going, there was the area in front of PCA which is sort of marked as stage 2 to complete that loop of connectivity to the CBD. I noted that we've done some work on the edge of where, and I know driving into that PCA driveway is a bit of an issue, and the trucks are sort of cutting the curb, which is causing all that rutting out and the like. So I noted that I can see they've done work to enter off onto the road, like to connect the footpath, but just wondered what the process is from here on out. I couldn't remember the timeline, and I've just had a few people ask me about it, and certainly note the trees in front of the silos pose an issue. So just wanted a bit of an update in terms of the timeline for that final piece.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, great question. It's funny, I looked at that project this morning and the ramp, I went that way because I was going to the KTP office. Project looks really, really good. And yeah, again, it's great that we're able to use local contractors to deliver a lot of our works here at the moment. We're sort of maximising their use, which is fantastic. That one there will go into a forward program, so for council to consider. We've nominated the Anderson section there this year in the budget for council's consideration. We'd like to see us get that done. What we'd like to do is probably work with PCA as the landowner there to do a design for that as a possible priority footpath for council. It's not a big section, but obviously there's every time we clear trees, it's quite a significant job. Understand too the roots would be quite embedded in there. So to answer it in short, we would like to work with council around prioritising that project for design and then in delivery in the next 18 months to 24 months if we can.
Excellent, thank you. And a giant thank you to Kevin and James who took Councillor Potter and I out for a walk. I think Councillor Frolloff, you might have been with us. Yeah, and we went for a good look before. It certainly made it a giant change. So thank you very much. Incredibly quick. Everyone, I think, in Kingaroy is talking about how fast that concrete crew works. So thank you so much for the efforts and please pass on our thanks.
General Manager, just wanted to clarify that Councillor Duff, in relation to Memorandum Gordon Brook Road, that is a state road, and any funding or works there would be programmed through Department of Transport and Main Roads. I know that our infrastructure department and council generally are very concerned about the prevailing issues on that road. General Manager, I think we can continue to advocate to the state perhaps for a full resheeting of that road at some stage in the future. I would imagine that that's something that's going to have to be considered. I'm sure Councillor Jones is well aware of it from the work that he's done there as well. So very much a state issue though, but if we can continue to chip away at the state, that'd be much appreciated. Yeah. Yeah,
no, you're 100% right, Mr. Mayor. State controlled road. Kevin and his team will look to work with the department to see what forward works we will do on that road. This notice it's obviously we've turned the financial year, which we're all very excited about. So it's a new bucket of money for us to work with the department around what those priorities are. So we'll do our best.
Thank you, General Manager. Just also wanted to note the work that's happening on Bowie Road, Wheatlands Road, in terms of the widening, sealing and overlay between Flats and Monjaw Wheatlands Road. Obviously, that's a state work continuing there. Probably just wanted to get an update. Are we comfortable that that's all progressing reasonably well?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we completed our TIDS portion of that work through there. So there was an additional funding provided from TMR to do that. Obviously, the little bit that was going to be short. So we will basically complete that this month, Kevin, and be out of there. So which is great. Yeah, so really well done to the team, and I think that's a great result that we didn't leave a 250 metre piece there that wasn't going to be done. So we were able to do the TIDS, and then Main Roads found the extra money for us to do that complete piece anyway.
That's excellent. Thank you, General Manager. And similarly with Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road, we do have a resolution on the books of council to advocate to the state for the widening of the single lane section of that moving forward. So we'll continue to pursue that on behalf of our community as another area that needs to be considered. Okay, look, I think that's probably all I've got. Anyone else want to raise anything in relation to Councillor Jones' report? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. If I could, just before we move on to the black spot funding, General Manager, in relation to the intersection, the cleaning up of the intersections, I know we've had some conversations about this in the past, and we had a report come forward in relation to the cost associated with resourcing the intersection cleanup program. I suppose my question was, and possibly looking to get a resolution on the books as to whether that's something that could be done as part of the annual winter program. I know that during the growing months, we just haven't got time to cover all our major intersections, but whether the whippersnipping and mowing and perhaps straightening up some of the guideposts, even if it's on those key intersections where we have high traffic volumes, whether that could be considered as part of our winter program. I know it possibly cuts across departments, but it would be interesting to hear some commentary around that. Thank you.
No, through Mr. Mayor. So our intent, I'll just have to go back and look at what we actually budgeted for. Our intent this year was to go through and start cleaning up at least the ones in the 80 zones out of town with the slashing operators if they were available. So that's what, obviously with the 50 to 100 mil of rain, that might have thrown a little spanner in the works for us. But the budget that we allowed for that was to go through and start progressively using those guys to tidy up through the winter program. So I'd probably just suggest to council that would just be a programming for Kevin and his team to work on from the 60s out with Parks and Gardens, and then we just get done what we can get done in that space. I think we did look at the additional slashing, but I think council said no.
That's correct. At this stage, we'd set that aside. But I'm wondering, General Manager May, is that something with council is proposing in the draft budget, at least it hasn't been resolved, that filling the vacancies in Parks and Gardens, is there capacity perhaps, or is there scope, are we able to look at utilising Parks and Garden staff through the winter period to assist with some of that works, or is that really, must that stay inside the infrastructure department?
No, it doesn't. It just depends on what Peter's winter's resources. So if he's doing tree or furniture maintenance or whatnot, depends on what his resources are doing. Parks are always welcome to mow as much as they like, particularly outside the 80 zone. So
so General Manager May, thanks.
As long as he pays for it, that's fine.
I'm just wondering whether as part of, I know that during winter that the Parks and Gardens guys go and get a lot of the things that they just can't get done in the other 9 months of the year, whether there might be some scope to at least consider cleaning up of those intersections in the 80 and the 100k zones, at least the major ones, because it's really whippersnipping, mowing and probably straightening up some guideposts if we can on those major intersections. Is that something that could perhaps be taken on board and considered?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Through you, Mr. Yeah, certainly can take it on board and see. Yeah, we just have to make sure we've got appropriate fellows qualified with traffic control and the resources. So yeah, it'll be definitely something that we could look at adding to the program. So it's just a matter of where the priorities are, the resources go.
Thanks, GM. Any consideration of that would be greatly appreciated. All right, well, I won't hold up anymore. We'll move on to 6.2, Black Spots Funding Program 22-23 at page 27. GM, Mean, would you like to give us a run through on that? Thank you.
Yeah, through Ms. Mel, I'll just get James to come up and take council through. So just in the black spot, obviously, what happens with black spots, and I'm happy to be corrected by my learned friend to my left, we normally work in conjunction with TMR to submit applications to the government for black spot funding. We very much work in collaboration with the Department of Transport and Main Roads because they do have specialists that assist in the road safety of intersections, and also we assist in lodging applications on the TMR network on their behalf that we consider a priority. James will run through one or two of those here shortly. But essentially what happens is we look for intersections that have had accidents and have been unsafe or near misses, and it does have to come through validated data through the department. So every time there's an accident, it is recorded, or generally is recorded by Queensland Police, and it finds its way into the transport system. So James and his team has done a wonderful job over the last couple of years to get some money for council. They are 100% funded. Obviously, the one that we've got Coming up is the Glendon and Markle Street roundabout, which James was successful in getting that for next year. So, which will involve the widening of that roundabout and also the correction of those intersections and pram ramps and whatnot. So, with that, I might just hand to James, Mr. Mayor, and he can take council through. We just thought, just given some of the discussions, we thought it'd be prudent just to give council some advice around where we're actually seeking these applications. There's lots of places we'd love to get intersections upgrades, but I do rely on James and his team it does cost us money to put these together with the team, so we do have to target the ones that are, have got validated data that may support some of that. So I'll give it to James.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, Aaron's absolutely right with the facts of what occurs around road safety in our region. We do take a lot of notice around where traffic moves and also where we do have issues around road safety and those infrequent, unfortunate occurrences that do happen on our roads in our region. We've had good success in this program in the past, so this is around the road safety, not necessarily the telecommunications black spot funding that can sometimes get confused with, but this is around really addressing what we need for our region and trying to come up with upgrades and the true benefits of what those upgrades really perform for our region. So what we've looked at as part of our road safety audit, which is like a first step of what we do in preparing for an application to the state. So the state administer this on behalf of the federal government. And the first one is around Youngman King Street, Kingaroy, which is just on the northern side of the CBD, just on the northern side of the rail corridor specifically. A few of us would be very aware of that intersection. There's a lot of turning movements that occur there to head down King Street, but also just with the close proximity of the two intersections being King Street and John Street. So there's a map on the screen there just to help illustrate that a little bit further. To add to the complexity of this, but this imagery doesn't show this, is also the service station on the southwestern side of that picture, and trying to facilitate a lot of those truck movements that need to head north. So we've got truck movements wanting to head north, we've got the rail corridor, which is also the rail trail crossing connecting the CBD through, but then trying to have enough room to facilitate a right turning lane. So we're starting to advance this further and further, and we've had some good discussions with Main Roads in the last 12 months around particularly the rail trail refuge crossing, which we're trying to build into what we call the centre median to help with decision making of users of that area to get from one side of the highway to the other. So we're looking at advancing that a little bit further and putting in an application. The second one is around the strong engagement we've had with Main Roads on Colston and Hart Street. They've identified this to us as an area of interest, and this is for a number of reasons. We've got the western side of the Blackbutt CBD, but we've also got a number of constraints associated with it. So Blackbutt is, it'd be fair to say that is the busiest intersection in Blackbutt. We've got the highway coming down the hill at reasonable grade. It's the southeastern entry into our region along the Diagula Highway and does facilitate a fair volume of traffic. But with the hill, it also contributes to speed, unfortunately. And with this being the busiest area in Blackbutt, this intersection needs to be upgraded to a level to help improve the safety that is needed in that general area. We've also got a lot of turn-off traffic to the north and south. Towards the south, we've got a lot of industrial and agricultural interests. And to the north, we've got a lot of residential and recreational interests as well that head to the north, being access to the showgrounds and a lot of the rail trail interests and the caravanners that sometimes frequent that area. So looking to help bring in some of those interests that turn at 90 degrees but not have speed contribute to some of the accidents that do happen through there. So working with Main Roads, working with Main Roads on an intersection upgrade, and that will be channelled back through Main Roads for their approval, given that this is their intersection at the end of the day, and this is something that they have come to us about as well to assist with some of the outcomes that can be delivered down there. The third intersection is the Bunya Highway, Carneys Road, Cumbia Road intersection. A bit like John Street King Street and Kingaroy, we've got a configuration that's fairly, it's a legacy of days gone by. And what we have there is, it's the nice entry point coming into the Cumbia CBD as such on that northern side of Cumbia. We also have the turn off to the transfer station that goes along Carneys Road, but then we've also got a lot of the agricultural industrial interests along Cumbia Road down to the orchards and so forth, and the traffic that heads out towards Ellesmere and Brooklands and so forth. So there's a lot going on at this intersection, and as such we can see there being benefits in looking at this a little closer. So we're doing the first stage of this with a road safety audit just to understand what can be achieved there. We've got some very early preliminary ideas on what that can look like, but we really want to be guided by what the safety audit is going to be able to provide for us in order to know what we can achieve in due time. This intersection is the Bunya Mountains Road, Bunya Avenue intersection. It's pretty much the main T intersection of the Bunya Mountains, and a number of us have been up there over time and would have witnessed the natural beauty of the intersection, but also some of these features can contribute to lack of visibility and sight lines that are needed. We really want to make this particular intersection attractive, but we also need to make it safe in order to assist with that. I think all of us have driven to that intersection with being prepared to put on the brake or take the foot off the accelerator well in due course, just because of a lot of the hidden unknowns that can occur around this area. So we're wanting to really extend off some of the good work we did with the widening heading down Bunya Avenue in the last year or two, and being able to work with Main Roads. Once again, this is their road, around trying to get a good outcome. So we're just seeing what options there are available to us at this point in time. And the fifth site that we've looking at quite closely is on the northwestern side of Kingaroy. Now this is in the top right is Myers Road. We've got West Street that comes down the page, and then we've got Weens Road that heads to the left of the page. The rail trail is just outside of that diagram on the top right corner, but in all essence it's around the fact that we've got just some geometric issues from a road point of view that are probably not as desirable as what we'd like them to be. We've got the curve that is the movement of traffic that goes from West Street onto Weens Road. You've also got that nice drainage dip that goes through there on West Street. You've then also got the intersection that's like a splayed intersection that comes on the outside of that curve, and there's also some electrical infrastructure in the vicinity of there as well as the trees. You've then also got the Myers Road itself, which is an unsealed road, so that in itself contributes to some of the visibility issues in drier times with dust and so forth. So wanting to look at that area a little bit closer to see what improvements can be made and whether there's any benefits in us being able to progress further towards putting an application together for further consideration by the state and the federal government. This site is the only one that is 100% council infrastructure. All the other 4 do involve state infrastructure. So we do need to work with them on their particular sites, but this council has the ability to make some good decisions associated with this once that data and further assessment's been undertaken for Weens West and Myers. So that concludes the 5 sites, and welcome any of the councillors around the questions that you may have for any of them.
Yeah, thanks, Manager. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wondering with regards to the Youngman Street and King Street intersection, whether that would include resurfacing that bottom part of John Street, because a lot of people don't even go up John Street anymore because they just refuse to, because it's so rough especially on the left-hand side as you're driving up towards the hospital. And is that something that's on our radar to actually fix in the near future? That's one question. The next one with Myers Road, at that particular one there, would this also include maybe, sorry, Kevin, would this maybe include putting bitumen down along Myers Road? Would that be part of this particular application? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the first question for John Street. So proposed John Street in this year's program in the budget. So it's listed as a line item to do the rehab through. It's about 100 grand. So so that probably answers that one. So we're going to dig out the failed sections. Just with Myers Road, what we're currently looking at is the intersection there down to the rail trail, James. How far are we going to go?
Yeah, it's probably one where, based on the cost versus the benefit, it's a social cost versus an infrastructure cost that gets weighted up here. Sorry. And for us, it's around probably trying to find a reasonable balance point on the infrastructure cost to assist us with getting the funding. So, yeah, the more that we want to seal and extend the construction of Myers Road, obviously increases the infrastructure cost, but the social cost doesn't increase. So we've got to try and get that balance right, because what that does is actually reduce us in the pecking order on what we can get as a social cost outcome. So the beauty is that we would definitely push for sealing of the curve as a minimum through there, and from there I think we would look to see how far we could go before we find that the balance is out of kilter as such.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, when you say social cost, what do you mean by a social cost? Because at the moment we've got a lot of issues on Myers Road, and it's not just the dust and the cars thinking that it's a racetrack and a rally track. We've also got other issues out there as well, of people stopping and dropping their paraphernalia. So, yeah. So, what do you mean by social cost?
Good question, thanks, Councillor. The social cost is around a lot of the medical and emergency service response, and what the Australian government has done is gone through the background of what it actually costs us as taxpayers around the response to an accident, or just a general response to property damage with a vehicle running off-road. A lot of the road safety treatments all have varying degrees of cost, and that has all been built into a per incident figure, and from there they then look to balance off the historical data with those particular sites. All those accumulate based on the different types of damage or fatalities or serious injury responses. All that accumulates up to a social cost of response associated due to the fact that there has been contributing factors around the infrastructure and the road users ending up in situations where they have required emergency service response to assist them with getting them back up and running. So it goes all the way from the immediate response through to the physio and back to livability and normality of people's lives. It's a whole of it's exactly right. It's around trying to get them back up and running where they transition back into society as simple as possible. So I know it's a bit of a long-winded response, but that's about as simple as I can make it.
Councillor Schumacher.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly thank you to the Australian Government for the funding program. And I recognise that David Littleproud recently announced the $353,000 for the Glendon Street and Markwell Street roundabout through this program. So it demonstrates how important it is to get these projects in the pipeline, because eventually the day may come when we actually receive the funding for them. So thank you for the work that's gone into that. Just in relation to the Myers Road intersection, I just wanted to ask, I understand, like, my car, certainly the crash data obviously comes through your GPS, and then you get these caution or warning signs through your GPS in your car to say there's been accidents in the area, be alert. I just wondered, with the Myers Road, are we already, and I know it's been discussed before, so my apologies, but I just wanted to understand, are we already advocating for the Myers Road intersection and the Taylors Road intersection and the where it interlinks with the Bunya Highway? Because there's been significant crashes there. Certainly, I know my GPS always goes off warning me for that area. So I just wondered, is that already in the pipeline?
There's probably two answers for this, in all honesty,
Yeah.
Councillor. About 5 years ago, we upgraded that Taylors Road intersection for primarily for all the right turn traffic to go up Taylors Road.
Yes.
That was also funded under Black Spot. But also Main Roads have added flag lighting in there in the last 12 months, which is the illumination of the intersection. So there's light that you can see there at night. There was some commentary around the fact that people coming down Taylors Road and the highway, the visibility of it, and the reduced speed signage as well that comes down Taylors Road, that people were still not aware of the fact that there was a highway, just to some of the visual cues as they come through. So we've worked with Main Roads on that in recent times. But as to Myers Road, there's no actual dedicated turning facility in the Myers Road, and we would all be aware that there's a fair bit of movement across Myers Road. As a bit of a northern rat run across the northern side of Kingaroy. So, yeah, Myers Road definitely has that natural element to it, and whilst it is a through road, it will continue as that, irrespective of the surface, whether it's gravel or seal. It's the convenience of the route at the end of the day. But, yeah, the Taylors Road intersection on the western side hasn't actually picked up anything from a Main Roads, the Taylors Road end of Myers Road actually hasn't been picked up through anything from Main Roads. A lot of their work has been purely intersection focused, and there hasn't been anything that's sort of extended down Myers Road, nor anything on the highway to assist with movement onto Myers Road, such that there's no dedicated right turn lane as you come from Wandai, or there's no dedicated left turn lane coming from Kingaroy to go down there. And in all honesty, a lot of the movements are probably through the intersection, or if you're heading to the north, very few to the south from our observations.
I just thank you for the additional information. Yeah, I just recognised there was an accident there just recently again. So I'm not sure whether this is the right program, but there's certainly some sort of, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into obviously lighting up the highway and all of those things, but it still seems to be a hot spot for accidents. So no doubt it's an agenda item that you probably talk about quite a bit through your traffic advisory committee. And further to that, I just think it's my view, noting the intersections that you've identified here, that first step being that road safety audit of those intersections would be appropriate. I think they are major intersections across the region, and they're reflective of, where some significant funding could really help us improve the safety of road users. So no, I'm supportive of the recommendation. Thank you for bringing it forward, and I look forward to the road safety audit.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I totally agree with Councillor Shoemaker. They're all great ones, but Councillor Shoemaker has just brought to my attention yet again something I've been maybe harping on a little bit, or maybe nagging about, with regards to that Myers Road Bunya Highway intersection, and whether Main Roads would ever consider bringing the 80k sign back, because I do believe that may help with the incidents that we've been having on that particular road. So I know it's been brought up before, I know I've been knocked down before, but I'm going to be bringing this one back and all the time, because I think it's highly important, that intersection.
I agree, absolutely. Coming down Taylors or along Myers, going north or south into Bunya is problematic. And I know we've approached DTMR previously about extending that 80k zone. We've had custom requests from the community on it. Where would, if that's something council had appetite to pursue, GM, what would be the process moving forward to try and get that back on the agenda?
And I'll probably throw to Susan, Mr Mayor, but from our point of view, we're not against the idea. So if council wanted to move a recommend to the committee that council write to TMR to consider reducing the speed through the Mears Road, Taylors Road, Bunya Highway intersection, we would then action that. So that might get on the table. for
Thank you,
So-
GM. So I think once we've dealt with this matter, once we get this carried, the report, we'll then come back to you, Councillor Potter, I think, if you're looking to move a motion in relation to that. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of points, and we're all well aware of the issues we have on these roads. Just something to bring to attention on that corner of West Street and Weens Road. That's now, of course, planted down to DeBosier there, with hinders eyesight coming around that corner a bit. But also there's residents in that area that now won't tend to accidents on that road because of the issues we've got there. But a question, and I'm happy to take it on notice, where and who years ago came with the idea of approaching intersections, they put speed bumps in the road. Now we have several of those around our South Burnett region, and as much as they probably weren't greatly accepted when they were put in, they're an incredible deterrent for anybody approaching an intersection at any speed greater than 60 kilometres an hour. So is that an option that could be looked at on both ends of Myers Road from West Street and onto the Burnett Highway? Because if you had those, and a lot of the objections came on those speed bumps from heavy traffic. There will be no heavy traffic on that road, but there's a lot of light traffic, public traffic. And in my opinion, my own personal opinion, that if we were to, or could instigate some speed humps or something that was implemented some years ago on certain intersections around the Burnett, that'd be a great deterrent for traffic coming onto that Bunya Highway at a greatly reduced speed.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So that's something that we would consider in the road safety audit. We're aware of some of those intersections and those treatments have been applied. There's the one out near the golf course where, yeah, and the one that goes past I don't know the road, but I know the reindeers are there at Christmas time on the right-hand side near the golf club, Aerodrome Road, sorry. It comes down to road safety audit and what is the actual cause of the accidents, and what sort of, one of the things that the team will look at is what's the actual turning manoeuvres of the accidents. Is it people going through the intersection? Is it people turning? Is it people not giving way? A lot of times too, and it can be impatience by drivers and lack of judgment, and it might be that the speed reduction is the suitable treatment to give people more time to stop and make better decisions. I drive out that intersection every morning, and I'm sure many do as well. I'm pretty sure a few people would go that way. You can see how it happens, and you can also see how it could be avoided too through some of those actions. So for the answer for that one is to the committee. We would just look at the road safety audit and what the causes are and come up with some treatments. But the treatment is a valid treatment if it's the right one. So it can be quite effective if needed.
Very good, thanks, GM. Okay, we have the recommendation come forward from the officers that the committee recommends to council that council nominate the following projects that address the federal government's road safety criteria: Youngman Street, Kingaroy Street, Kingaroy, Colson Street, Hart Street, Blackbutt, Bunya Highway, Carneys Road, Cumbia Road, Cumbia, Bunya Mountains Road, Bunya Avenue, Bunya Mountains, and Myers Road, Weens Road, West Street, Kingaroy. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Potter, thank you. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you very much, officers, for bringing forward that report and the work you're doing in that regard. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a motion, please. I'd like to... Oh, wait. Are we right? I'd like to move that South Burnett Regional Council right to transport and main roads to request moving the 80k sign on Bunya Highway to incorporate the Taylors Myers Road intersection.
Council happy for us to just help with the wording on this bit?
Yep.
Yeah, so
yep,
we go
no,
that
definitely.
the committee will recommend to council
Yes.
that South Burnett Regional Council right to, I'll wait for you. That South Burnett Regional Council write to DTMR requesting that the 80k zone on the Bunya Highway be extended to include the Taylors, Mears and Bunya Highway intersection. Is that okay, Councillor? Yep.
That reflects the intent, Councillor. You're comfortable with that? Okay. All right. Well, we have a seconder for such. Councillor Froeloff, thank you. Speakers for or against? Go to the vote. Those, Councillor Potters will respect. Those in favour? Sorry. Yep. Okay, that's been carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, we'll move on now to 6.3 at 33, which is the Kingaroy Transformation Project update, and we'll hand over to General Manager and Manager to take us through it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just apologies from the project manager, Alan Christensen. He's unwell this morning, so I'm on my own with my learned colleague again. So, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just propose to Council that the report that Alan has provided is quite comprehensive. If we're just suggesting maybe it could be marked as read, I'd be happy just to give Council just an overview of progress and then go straight into the parking if you wish. I've got probably as the main event, if that's okay.
Good recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll just, if they may, we just mark that as read. Just in progress, in general, welcome the Council to go and have a look at Alfred Street. The trees went in there yesterday. They look really good. The Parks team, I brought it up at the SMT yesterday. The Parks team, it was great to have a crew of Parks people on the project who haven't been there before, really excited to be on there. They're looking forward to it. They had the Nanango crew across. They were measuring to make sure every tree was dead centre. And speaking with Damien and Lucas and that, the Parks team have actually been chomping at the bit to get on the project. It's interesting. We talk a lot about the project and we've got lots of progress and, we've got challenges and whatnot, but generally to see staff excited to be working on such a landscape project, it's to the point where they actually spoke to the trainees and told them that they may never see a project of this type again in their. It's great. So that actually probably gave us a bit of a lift yesterday. Progress is going quite well at the moment. We expect that we will be completed on the northern side of the roundabout in its current position Sunday or Monday this week, and next week we'll be swapping to the southern side. So in general, we expect to be completed through to the roundabout by July. We are obviously Baconfest is coming there in the third weekend. We are looking currently to program asphalt for Alfred Street in the first and second weeks of August, possibly over the public holiday long weekend. So we'll be advising further of that. We're starting night works in Haley Street on Monday night, which is the water main. So essentially coming past Crowies and LJ Hooker and Tyre Power. So that'll start progress going through there. And then what we'll be doing at the end of the month is we'll virtually be starting to extend into the rest of Alfred Street, which means we'll have those crossings reinstated with that asphalt work. So we expect that we'll have a fairly large completion of the roundabout back through Alfred Street prior to Baconfest, which is our aim. So all in all, the progress has been quite good. Wet weather, again, has been a little bit challenging for us. Again, it's hard to be critical of the wet weather when you're building roads, but timing is impeccable sometimes, but it is what it is. The dams, Tim will be here shortly, but the dams came up about 0.5% each, so we were okay with that. So with that, if we may, Mr. Mayor, we'll just mark that as read. We will be workshop next Wednesday afternoon for the shared community area and also to run through the project costings also in progress at that time. So with that, if I might mark as read, then I might just go to the parking, Sue, if I can. I've got the plan in that, Mayor, if I run through.
Yes, thank you, Jim.
Okay. So what I might do is, if I may, I'll get James to hand these out. I've got your questions, Mr. Mayor. Are you happy for me to run through, or did you want to ask? Or yeah, I'm happy to deal with. Yep, no worries.
Community, I'm sorry, put my light on. So just a couple of things there. We had the follow-up in relation to 6.3.2 from the last minute's Councillor Duff's question in relation to the number of car parks being lost to garden beds as compared to as against road safety. Clarification of that and just perhaps when that information might come back. And then there was the also 6.3.3 in relation to my desire to see written correspondence from the department in relation to whether or not the KTP shared zone is able to be removed without breaching the funding agreement. So do we want to deal with those first, GM, and then we can move on to the other questions after that? And then we can move into a general explanation around the parking. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. So just to answer in regards to the advice from the Australian Government, so we've spoken to the Australian Government. We've requested the written advice in regards to if we were to do a variation to the project, what the process for that is. We believe we will have that information available for the general meeting this month when the shared zone comes up for discussion, Mr Mayor, if that's okay. Just in relation to Councillor Duff's, and apologies to the councillor when we spoke the other day, I thought we had answered, but happy to be corrected, thank you. The losses for garden beds and garden beds solely is zero. So the only parking has been removed is because of either disabled or the geometrics of the intersection safety, and I'm happy to probably just go through that as part of the parking layout, Mr Mayor, if I can. So
Yes, thank you, GM. I think that'll probably become obvious when you explain that plan, will it not? Yeah, thank you. And the other questions then, moving on, and certainly thank you for reaching out to the department. We'll look forward to that advice coming through, hopefully by the general meeting, or if not, when we receive it.
If there is a delay, Mr Mayor, I will advise in advance of that meeting so that everyone's aware of why or what that process will be.
Thanks very much for acting on that so promptly, General Manager. So the other questions I had there, and I think they're going to be clarified here. So Council issued a media release on the 1st of July pursuant to recent media reports just questioning the number of car parks being lost to KTP. And in the media release, we notified the media that there would be a total of 97 parking losses adopted, and they'll occur on the following streets. So in Yalford Street, we had 33, Kingaroy Street 10, Haley Street 25, and Glendon Street 29. So a total of 97. And as General Manager just clarified, they're all, and that'll be explained further now, that not lost due to garden beds, but lost due to the geometry and obviously the pedestrian movement and traffic movement. So look, my question was really just wanting to confirm that information is now current, that there have been no modifications or changes to that. It did go out on the 1st of July, just for the benefit of the community, just wanting to clarify that. And I suppose the other part of the question was that, as raised at previous community consultation reference group discussions, just an update on how we're travelling in informing the business owners in relation to the exact locations of the car park losses. I know there was a little bit of confusion around that when we spoke about a month ago with some of the business owners, so keen to see that clarified for them, or just get an update on where we're at with clarifying that, and also whether it's possible to provide the committee with an overlay map that shows where, informs us as to exactly where those car park losses will occur, so that we can all be in a position to be able to communicate that to our community. I have looked at it on the website, which clearly shows the PWDs and the green seniors parks, but just having a bit of trouble identifying the precise location of the parking spaces that are being removed, and we may even be able to clarify that today, but that was effectively the nature of the question. So I think having asked that, General Manager, should hand over to you to cover off on that if you could. Thank you.
Yep, no, thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and appreciate you providing the questions to me in advance, which allowed us to get through. Firstly, just to the council, one of the things I've learned very young is when you go to council is if we have made an error, we make sure we put our hand up and acknowledge that we have done that. As the GM, it is my responsibility for the parking plan. And the team and I accept that we have miscalculated the parks previously in the past, so I do pass my apologies to the council on behalf of the group. What I would say to council is the plan that you have in the front is had multiple reviews in front of you now. It is a different plan to what was released last week to council. We have gone through the plan in detail over the last couple of days to the point where we have made a final run through it yesterday, where we have altered the plan based on the feedback that we had received to date on PWDs and the green zones and the layout. So the parking plan that you have there is a revised plan to last week. The total number of parks that are being reduced is 99, okay? So and I'm just going to go through that, Mr Mayor, if I may. What I've got there for council is the fact sheet around the reasons for those reductions. Now, it's similar to the councillors' discussions before. The parks that are being reduced are only being reduced due to regulatory reasons, which is intersection safety or pedestrian crossing safety, or the installation of PWD parks, okay? There is no parks being removed in the CBD for aesthetics or infrastructure, which is aesthetically garden beds and those sort of things. So under the law, if we reconstruct the street, we must return it to new standards. So we must, when we do a design, we must bring it to current standards in what we've identified, obviously through KTP, and also in consultation with TMR, is the location of the crossings within the CBD need to be addressed. You'll see on the layout that the crossings in Haley Street are being relocated. The one which has been problematic and a cause of many issues opposite the South Burnett Tynes building is being shifted to the east. There is also an additional crossing being installed near the commercial hotel in Haley Street as well. So those two safe pedestrian crossings are taking up a considerable amount of parks which have to be installed for road safety issues. One of the things I'll add to council too, one of the things that we look at in design is not just traffic safety, it is also around pedestrian safety. It is a critical element of road design. Unfortunately, in a low speed environment, you can have cars have a ding, and generally you normally get a broken bumper and whatnot, but if a pedestrian gets hit at 50 or 60 or 40 even, those can be quite significant impacts. So everything that has been done is done around road safety. In the fact sheet there, I've put that detail there for council. Below that, just identify for council that there are 17 on-street PWD parks being installed, and there are 8 Green Bay parks being installed also. What we've seen is some of the feedback is that some of the amendments that we've made, the feedback we had was at the post office that we had made no allowance for disabled parking or Green Bay parking down at that facility. So we've made a configuration change for that as well. One of the other ones there, which was not included in the original count, if I may, is down near the courthouse there. We are doing asphalt works as part of the configuration of the intersection opposite the courthouse in Kingaroy Street. So we now call that Kingaroy to the courthouse piece there. There are 3 parks being removed there, which we put back as 2 parallel. They do not meet standards to have cars reverse into the traffic lane so close to the intersection there, so they'll be required to go to parallel. We have a PWD installed in front of, I believe it's the podiatrist and the first aid supplies there. One of the consultations that we'll be doing this week is to talk to those businesses around whether we think there is value in us installing an additional green zone park there as well. What happens is, and it's interesting, we'll be releasing a video very shortly around inclusivity and the access issues that people have within the CBD of Kingaroy. And when you watch the video, it's actually quite interesting and quite disheartening to see that our infrastructure disables, basic safety for some of these people. What happens there is, because there is no PWDs or there is no elderly parks in that vicinity, people actually walk out to the traffic lights and they walk down either in their wheelchair or in their walker. They actually walk on the edge of the traffic lane to get down to their car. And these are people who have mobility issues. So if you can see the purpose of that is that we're looking to put parks in meaningful places that allows infrastructure to be accessed. So whilst it is a loss of parking for the CBD, there are reasons for that. just what we'll do, Mr. Mayor, is that fact sheet will form part of that report, so people can see what it is. There is no secrets on it. That's the number that we have counted. What we'll do is place this on our website, obviously as part of the package, because it's publicly done as well. And probably to answer the final one there, the divisional councillors will be going door to door with the businesses to go through with this information, so we can go and have those conversations. We have spoken to a number of businesses in between times around different parking configurations and just general layout, but this will give us that opportunity to go through now, and we've got a single point of truth where we can go through and acknowledge with those businesses what it will be. So with that, Mr. Mayor, does that provide appropriate explanation? The map does highlight what was there before and what's going back there as well, so on the line, so people can quite clearly see what those changes will be through that layout configuration. So
Yes, thank you, General Manager, for providing that level of detail. Certainly provides clarity as to the reasons for the loss of parks. I think that report does, and particularly around reference to the fact that under Australian standards for safety, you actually have to have, where there's two-way traffic, you've actually got to have 20 metres each side of the pedestrian, within which you can't have any car parks. So that explains why we've got those refuges with the garden beds in them to accommodate that 20-metre zone.
Yep.
No parking zoning.
Yeah, so
I can see where it's 10 metres for, 10 metres after, but if it's a two-way, it'll be 20 metres, I'd imagine, because it's before and after. Would that not be the case?
Yeah, you'll have
or on the left-hand side, it'd be 10.
Yeah, you'll have 20 on one side and you'll have 10 on the other.
10 on the other.
Yeah, so probably just to answer the one we actually had a really good look at was on the councillor's question. The one that we've put down here where we spoke about the garden bed at near the Chinese restaurant. If you look out, and it's not a pedestrian crossing, so it's not a marked pedestrian crossing, but it is actually a pedestrian crossing, so they must give way to traffic. So to give you an idea, the reason why the shielding is there from the garden beds is to give the crossing presence, so the motorists can identify that there is a crossing that is available to them there. Obviously, it allows them to keep it low enough that the pedestrian can be seen. Even though the pedestrian's got to give way to traffic, it also narrows the distance that the pedestrian has to travel from one side to the other. The only reason that one doesn't have stop bar, the piano keys on it is too close to the traffic lights. But if you're a pedestrian and you walk out, you look to your left and you look to your right, what you don't do is look to your left behind you to see if a car is reversing. So that's why you have shielding on the left-hand side of you. Because what we see there at the moment on some of these crossings, similar to the intersections, is the cars actually reverse over that there. So that's and that's why you have new standards in that space. So, but it's interesting when you actually sit there and you think, well, if you look to your left and you look to your right, do you actually look behind your left-hand shoulder when you're about to step out and cross the street? You don't. So that's why you have that shielding. When that car comes out, that car shouldn't reach that pedestrian when they reverse out. So that's probably why the width looks the way it is. And I mean that in a lay example of what you consider when you do look at those things. So just to add in there also, in the Alfred Street car park, the design that we have for that car park calls for 4 disabled parks in there as well. We've only marked 2. We will be marking an additional 2 there as well, obviously adjacent to the current ones, when we do the other ancillary works that we may have planned for that car park in the future months. So just want to make council aware of that as well. So so with that, Mr. Mayor, if I could table that report as noted for the committee, and then we will circulate that as it will be public available then. And again, I do apologise to the council for the confusion, but we want to be very upfront today that this is what it is, and we'll accept that we have miscalculated that in the past, and this is the map that we'll be running through. If anyone picks up an error, please come and see me. It's actually quite interesting when you actually go through and try and count what was there before and what you're trying to count now. But it's been a process. But it will be 99 parks for the record.
Yes, thank you, General Manager. So in the fact sheet we have here in front of us, just clarifying, so there'll be a loss of 99 in total, and now just clarifying that will be 31 in Alfred Street, through Youngman, starting from Youngman going right down to Short Street, so 31 along that Alfred Street section, 14 in total along Kingaroy Street, Haley Street from Youngman down to the Kingaroy Street intersection, 26, and Glendon Street from the Haley Street intersection down to the Alfred Street roundabout, 28 in total. So that then accumulates to 99 losses as such in total, in accordance with the Australian standards for safety as to traffic movement and pedestrian crossings. General Manager, it would be really good, probably the only thing I'd like to see perhaps, it'd be great to get this out to the community as well, if we can get this up on our website, perhaps the fact sheet, perhaps this plan. This is a much better plan, it gives much more detail, and of course, perhaps if we can get another media release out just to clarify that this is now the recalculated and final figure, that'd be great. Thank you, Madam Acting CEO. The only thing I'd probably like to see taken out of the media release is the reference to George Street car park as receiving an additional or proposed 99. If we could perhaps just take that out. I think at this point in time there has been no resolution of council in relation to George Street. So until such time as there's a resolution to fund such works, I would suggest that we should leave that out, Madam Acting CEO. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, are you just talking about removing from the plan, or?
Yeah, just on the schedule, on the schedule on the top right-hand corner of the plan.
On the table, Mr. Mayor?
On the table, sorry, item
Yeah,
23, George Street.
Okay, so we'll just strike it off the table?
I would suggest so. There's been no resolution of council.
That's quite okay.
If we could, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Yep, no, that's right. I just wanted to make sure so we'll take it off the table, and with that, we'll add this to the package, for the KTP package. And so it's publicly available now, so.
Yes.
And then we'll prepare a media release with Susan and the team.
Thank you, General Manager.
Yep.
And General Manager, just the other one, I note in the report that it says that weekly walk-arounds with divisional councils and the project team. Just an update, is that happening? Is that going reasonably well, happening on a weekly basis, keeping particularly the CBD business houses informed as things progress?
Yeah, so my discussion with the divisional councillors is that we've started to make some progress in this space, which has been good. We've had Councillor Shoemaker accompany the team this week to visit one of our larger businesses, just to talk about some of those impacts, which has been really good. Councillor Potter's also been joining us, particularly in discussing around our inclusivity and those issues with some of the businesses. On Thursday, the councillors will be doing a walkthrough, which will basically address the parking. So we'll be talking about that directly with the businesses, and hopefully that will be an ongoing, regular thing. And we really look forward to their support, and we do appreciate that. I do honestly mean that. It is a big project. There are a lot of moving parts, and it's tremendous that the councillors are there assisting with us. And it's like all consultation. There's good and bad. Not every issue is a positive issue. But what we do, and similar today, is that if we do have an issue, we are upfront about that, and we make sure that we address that as soon as possible.
Thank you, GM. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the update. Firstly, I appreciate your apology and recognising a mistake. That's certainly a core value of mine. However, I do also want to note, firstly, how challenging it is to count those parks. I've tried a couple of times, and thank you to KTP Project Manager Alan Christensen, who went through with his red pen and checked my calculations. I really want to note how challenging this project is, and I really want to note the conversations that the KTP team have had in the CBD since the office opened. It's incredible when you look at this new parking plan and the plans that were first presented to council, how much work has gone in. Now, every single conversation, the conversation with delivery truck drivers around loading bays, the conversations with bus drivers around how do we move the bus lanes, the conversations that have been had with the post office owner around the deliveries of post office items. All of these things have fed into this plan. And what I think is wonderful to see is that feedback has been enacted. Councillor Duff, you talk about community consultation all the time. And it's great to see that, yes, while the loss of 99 car parks is huge, not dismissing that, it's great to see that all of these conversations that we've had have actually been embedded into the plan throughout the way. So the changes that you see to disability car parks from the first plan that was tabled in this room to where we are now demonstrates the conversations that the KTP team have had on the ground with business owners, with people who are in wheelchairs, with people who elderly residents in our community. There have been an enormous number of conversations. And that's why, in my opinion, this has consistently changed. And I don't think anyone has tried to hide that from anyone. I want that to be clear. I think we've tried to note all the way through that there will be parking losses, because to replace what we've got with modern day infrastructure, that's what it, you know, to improve the pedestrian safety, that's what it's going to take. In terms of your comments around George Street, Mr. Mayor, you're right. There hasn't been a council resolution about that, and I really do think we need to start turning our mind from the loss and the reconfiguration to how we solve this problem. What is council's plan over the next couple of years with projects like George Street? I really want to start having those conversations. I want to start looking ahead at how we resolve some of these things into the future. Because I think we've all agreed that that's an important, parking has always been a priority, and certainly getting parking for local businesses is a priority. So I think it's really important for us as councillors and for this council to show some leadership, to recognise that this is a challenge for us, but to also recognise that there are potential solutions, and I think we really genuinely need to start hashing them out and looking at them in our Forward Capital Works programs. I just probably had a question for you, Mr. Mayor. I know you've talked about writing, and the team has written to Minister Littleproud around the BBRF grant. It's my understanding that that grant was approved because, and council had tried on a number of occasions, that grant was approved because this was so much more than just a traditional streetscape. This was about bringing people into our CBD. This project, if I think back, and I've reviewed so much information that was tabled in this council chamber, it was about community activation and economic regeneration. It was about job creation and increasing visitors to our area, increasing social connectedness and community well-being. I'm probably curious, I am really curious as to why I don't think this council sort of had the conversation yet that even if the government said, well, we're open to changes, which concerns me, because we've gone to them with a scope and a project, and I recognise that's work of the previous council, certainly thank them for their efforts. I'm really concerned about what happens if we stop in the middle of this around that Glendon Street area and change our mind, noting that we've already had conversations about Kingaroy Street, and in my opinion, Kingaroy Street is a much bigger project than just the bottom end of Kingaroy Street. I think we need to be looking at Glendon and around the corner and looking at that whole area as a precinct and what the functionality of that could be. So I want to know what you're hoping to achieve if we write to the government and ask them, can we change the scope? How do you see the economic and social impacts of changing our scope? Because I know the project was largely focused around the opportunity for community connectedness in a shared space. So I want to understand, what are your thoughts around the economic and social benefits of shifting from Glendon Street down to Kingaroy Street at this point in the project? Because I note all the work that has to happen, like we've got the photographs here as part of the report, all of the work that has to happen with that conduit and connectivity through the base and top end of Glendon Street. So what do you envisage? How would we sell that to the federal government if we were going to shift, if we said no more shared zone community, we're going to invest the money in Kingaroy Street? How do you how do you see the social and economic benefits of that shift actually benefiting Kingaroy into the future? That's probably what I'm really keen to understand, because at the moment I don't have that story.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I'm happy to provide an answer to that. I think clearly we want to get an answer from the federal government before we commit any time in committee or council to debating the matter. It's academic if the agreement is such that it's set in stone. And if that's the case, well, the matter won't be pursued by me. However, if there is scope to be able to reconsider that, then to answer your question, the economic and social benefits of such, of perhaps considering the reallocation of that $600,000 as a contribution to any future works from council's restricted cash towards Kingaroy Street and indeed perhaps Glendon Street South should be considered. So where do the economic and social benefits lie as against the proposed shared zone? Well, in my view at least, and certainly in the view of residents that have approached me, if I could start with the social benefits first and foremost, there is significant concern amongst particularly the elderly who use the library. It's a significant social asset to our community, and there is concern that perhaps even if we were to construct a car park in George Street, that for many people who are quite immobilised due to age or due to disability, that their capacity to be able to walk from George Street to the library is somewhat limited, and that it was indicated to me by a couple of user groups that use it on a regular basis that if they can't find a park in front of the library, that perhaps they would reconsider and not use the library as such moving forward. Now that's just what was shared with me. That wasn't prompted. That was shared with me directly, and it was volunteered by the people in that. And I do believe, General Manager, that we're going to be consulting with library users moving forward. And I also do note that the most recent report indicates that the shared zone's only resulting in a loss of 4 car parks. But that was certainly one of the social impacts. I think also in terms of the capacity to be able to, in terms of social benefits, the capacity to be able to provide more parking in Glendon Street, in my view, would enable us to ultimately perhaps, if there is a thoroughfare through to Kingaroy Street, provide greater scope for movement of pedestrians into Kingaroy Street to reactivate that street, where the majority of those businesses are, many of whom form social meeting places for people wanting to go and have a cup of coffee or meet in Kingaroy Street, and that perhaps to be able to provide more and more convenient parking there would have some social benefits in Glendon Street. But primarily, I think it's, to a large extent, in my view, it's the economic impact that's most great. That Kingaroy Street South, for example, is the main entry point into town. And when we start to look to attract people to locate to our region or to even spend time in our CBD or to come through with tourists, that main entry point, I believe, needs to look presentable in a way which will attract people into the CBD. There's also potential for us, I believe, that if we could in years to come complete work in Kingaroy Street South and Glendon Street South, to perhaps then to start working and negotiating with the owner of those buildings that are in significant disrepair in Kingaroy Street South, and some of the properties that also then boundary on to Glendon Street South, to perhaps look as to the possibility of blending, or not merging, but blending the shopping world car park across Glendon Street into that Kingaroy Street area as one large precinct, thereby extending the CBD further south and picking up that area that goes from Alfred Street down to Markwell Street as part of the CBD extension. I think there's a tremendous amount of scope there to expand our retail and commercial footprint in Kingaroy by extending it across the road into that zone that's currently taken up by those dilapidated empty buildings between I think we all know where we're talking about. I think the community know it's been an issue in the community's mind for a long time. So I think in terms of economic impact, in my view, at least, and the view of some residents at least, that reallocate or consideration of reallocation of the expenditure from the shared zone perhaps to the development of Kingaroy Street South, and perhaps even, as you say, Glennon Street South could indeed give rise to greater economic benefit if we could see that developed into a retail/commercial centre to be able to grow our retail and commercial footprint in Kingaroy as a regional hub. Look, I could talk about this for a long period of time. I brought the issue to council and asked the question due to the issue being raised with me by a number of residents in the community, particularly the elderly, and also people who are concerned about the dilapidated buildings in Kingaroy Street South. Look, I could provide much more detail, but that's probably a short executive summary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your response. Whilst I understand what you're saying, and certainly I think Kingaroy Street has been a topic of conversation for this council, certainly since the day I walked into this chamber and well before, so I recognise that. In terms of, you make a good point around the elderly, around the library and ensuring they have parking, and maybe that's some feedback we can take away from the meeting today around some green parking or zones. From my understanding of the project, Mr. Mayor, if we do take out, if we stop building Kingaroy Glendon Street, it's my understanding that the funding that $600,000 that you've quoted would not be enough to fix the problems around Kingaroy Street South. I believe in the first instances when I raised questions in this chamber about Kingaroy South, it was $1 to $2 million at best guess to start that work, and that was just for that one end of Kingaroy Street South. So I'm not supportive of writing to the federal government and saying thank you for your grant, but by the way, we've started and we'd like to change the scope now. I think that's dangerous because there's simply just not enough money, even if that were to be approved, to finish Kingaroy Street South properly and to do the work as you've said, rightly so. And I know we've had meetings with the owners of those buildings in that street around the potential of that precinct. And that's why I say I think that really needs dedicated and concentrated effort and consideration into what does the future of that end of Kingaroy CBD look like. And I don't think we can make those assumptions right now. I think there's a lot of work that happens there before we can do that. I also think your comments around economic benefit of Kingaroy Street, I'd challenge that because I know events like the Bacon Fest bring thousands of people, an enormous spend into the CBD of Kingaroy and to far-reaching places across our region because people travel through. So I would challenge economic benefits of a Glendon Street shared space. I certainly appreciate your comments, Mr. Mayor. However, I'm not supportive of writing to David Littlecrowd. I think it's embarrassing to write to him right now after accepting that funding, after all that work that the former council has done, to actually go to him now and say, well, we've changed our mind. I don't agree with that at all. Thank you. I think congratulations to the team. The project's going exceptionally well. In terms of your question around talking to local businesses, I understand since former Mayor Campbell stepped down as KTP ambassador, it's been a great opportunity for Councillor Potter and I to actually be out on the ground talking to local businesses, and certainly there's a great enthusiasm and energy around the Kingaroy CBD at the moment. So I look forward to hitting the pavement with you again tomorrow, Councillor Potter, and having more of these conversations and making sure people are fully aware of certainly the parking impacts, but just how hard this council's working to come up with better solutions. So thank you.
I'll just go to General Manager's me and shortly to clarify some of those issues for you, Councillor. But look, I fully, and I have always said right from the word go that I would understand that the $600,000 isn't going to fund the redevelopment of Kingaroy Street South, but I'll refer to my learned colleague, Councillor Jones, when he mentioned in a previous committee meeting that we're probably looking around $1.2 million. It could be more. But my indication at that stage was to simply reconsider whether or not that would be a contribution towards proposed future works for Kingaroy Street South. So I've never certainly accept and understand that $600,000 won't get the job done, but it would go a long way towards a contribution towards that. I'll have to possibly agree to disagree with you, Councillor. that the economic benefit, I believe, of developing Kingeras Street and Glennon Street South in relation to perhaps seeing a vibrant commercial retail sector there that operates 52 weeks of the year as against one weekend, I would suggest that an economic study would show that, Councillor, you can shake your head, but it's my turn to have the floor, that an economic study would show that to have a vibrant commercial centre in there, whatever it might be, linked across to the providing jobs for people working in retail, providing jobs for people working in a commercial centre, you could put a large number of shops in there employing a lot of people, that would have serious economic benefits for Kingaroy and the region, as against, I fully accept that Bacon Fest and perhaps other activities that will happen in the shared zone will have an economic benefit, absolutely. But I would suggest to you that, in my view, an economic study would demonstrate that commercial retail sector extended all the way down Kingaroy and Glennon Street south would provide employment and would provide serious, significant economic benefit to Kingaroy and the region. General Manager, I might just get you to comment. I could see you nodding there. A couple of responses. Any responses to those comments at this stage?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think it's for us to enter into the debate. I do note the one comment I did take out of that is that I think it's important for us to have some consultation with those library people, particularly around, I think the council's idea around maybe looking at some green. James and I were just, if you're wondering what we're doing, we're actually just counting and checking the layout of the green zones and that sort of stuff. So we do note that we haven't got any in Glennon Street. So we would welcome that feedback from anybody, I suppose, to if that's going to assist people to use that facility. So yeah, other than that, Mr. Mayor, we'll
Yeah, thanks,
just
John.
note our parking
Would
plan,
really
if that's okay.
appreciate perhaps putting the mind at ease for those library users, the elderly gentlemen and elderly ladies who use that facility in relation to their capacity to get access to car parks and conveniently get in and out of the library. That would be much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question first before I start speaking. The actual Glendon Street shared zone is responsible for losing 4 parks. Is that correct, General Manager? Without just the shared zone itself, without the requirements from DTMR?
Yeah, so just per our fact sheet, the configuration that we'll be proposing will be a reduction in 4 through there. So
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I fully understand your points, Mr. Mayor. Understand where you're coming from. Me personally, I don't want to go down and spend money in front of those shops down in the southern end of Kingaroy Street just yet. As a previous councillor that was successful in sourcing this funding from the Build Better Regions funding, it was always our idea that would be done in stage 2. There would be a stage 2 to that, and we would try and work through that. That was always a conversation around the table. There was never anything seriously moved or anything like that through the chamber. The George Street car park, I do have an issue with not putting it in as a proposal, because if people come to us with any other issues across our region and we seem to think that we have an answer, we put that proposal out to them when we say this is what we're proposing in the future. So this is only exactly what we're doing here. We're just proposing that this George Street car park is a future answer, or maybe a future answer to some of the car parking losses throughout our street. So I really can't see why we wouldn't put that in as a proposal as future funding or whatever else. And there's conversation around the recycled materials that are coming out, that we could use that as a base and all that sort of stuff and fund that. The library, Glendon Street, all that, totally agree. We need to talk to those people. I support Councillor Shoemaker in the fact that we have had discussions and we've gone into the chamber and we voted on it, and in a democratic process we're supposed to respect the decision of the chamber. So everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but we then have to go out, I believe, as a councillor and then put a positive spin on it and work with what we've got. So I just struggle with where we get to now if we go to the federal government and say, as Councillor Shoemaker alluded to, that we're going to change the plans from when we initially done it and all the work, and remiss of me too not to acknowledge General Manager Meehan for taking responsibility of the comments and the misquotation on the car parks, but I tend to agree. As everyone knows, I'm a huge supporter of what we're proposing here in Kingaroy, and I can see economic development, economic, social benefits is what we're proposing, and there is other stages that need to be done. It's just like Mergen. We done Mergen stage 1, 2 and 3 and we got to a great result. We've still got the park in the main street that needs upgrading. We had funding issues there, but we found a way, and it's turning out to be a great result. This is a much bigger project, but as I see it, I'm quite happy with the proposal that's in front of us. I don't agree with writing to the Minister to change our plans. So that's just a few of the comments that I've got to make around this. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. And again, I fully acknowledge that any works in Kingaroy Street South would be stage 2 of the project, if that's something that council had appetite for, and that my intention was always, and I think I shared this in the council, in the committee meetings, was always and was only ever to suggest that where we have, we could consider setting that $600,000 aside as a contribution towards potential future works on Kingaroy Street South. Not indicating that that should happen within any period of time, but acknowledging the fact that council doesn't have unlimited cash. We are tight with our restricted cash in terms of a lot of the road works and the resealing work and other things we're going to have to do in the future with a lot of the water infrastructure. We've got to be careful where our capital spend goes. And I was just suggesting that perhaps we could have another look at perhaps reallocating that $600,000 to any stage 2. It may happen whenever that is in the future. It's appropriate. I think in terms of the other thing too, that seeking written clarification from the department was a resolution of a committee meeting, and just speaking with acting CEO, that it would be problematic to rescind such now, where it's already been acted upon. I believe we've reached out and spoken with the department and sought written clarification. So we'd probably have to get some advice from the office of the CEO over coming days if the committee was seeking to rescind that resolution. But it was a resolution of the last committee meeting, as recorded in the minutes. CEO, General Manager, do you want to add anything to that at this stage?
I was just going to say, Mr Mayor, the shared zone will be made available to council next Wednesday, and then will be on the agenda for the general. So all the information will be provided for that. So everyone will have all the information they need, hopefully, before the general. So if there's not, we'll make sure that's there. So.
Thanks, General Manager, much appreciated. Again, also support what the other council have said. Thank you for coming forward and acknowledging the correct calculations in relation to the parking losses. Much appreciated. Madam Acting CEO, did you want to add anything to that at this stage?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. It's just a matter of clarity. If the resolution has been enacted or acted upon, we can't rescind that. So I would have to, in the CEO's absence, I would have to check to see if that had been acted on.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Okay, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I remember the resolution, and I also wanted to say I don't think that asking a question is an issue with Minister Littleproud's office. We're always about getting information back, collecting information, making decisions around information. The Mayor has identified that there's people concerned, there's been consultation and people feedback about the shared zone, concerned about loss of car parks, concerned about the library. I also know that purses are concerned about the bus park. And my question to the General Manager is, you talk about community consultation and working with people. Has that been resolved? So I know that Purses Transport in Glennon Street wanted to park that where their buses always pull up, and there's a shaded area there. And I actually walked out with the President of the Chamber, Damien Martu, and he said, well, he didn't know where they were going to go. So just wondering, has that been sorted with the transport company? And just wanted to reiterate that I think it's fair enough to gather that information and make decisions based on the feedback that we get from the community as we move forward. So thank you.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor. So I'm happy to provide the information from the department. whether we rescind or we have that in motion. I'm happy to provide that information at the general for council to have the debate on that at that matter at that time. So there's no issue from us to seek that. Just in relation to the bus zone. So the bus zone is on the parking plan there in Glendon Street. So the bus zone has moved down slightly. Yep, Lynelle, just go to your left. That's it. That's the bus zone there. So very interesting question, Councillor. We had this discussion on Monday afternoon. We have various opinions on the bus zone. The reality is it's an extra 50 metres down the road for people to walk. At the moment, our answer to the bus company is that we are proposing its current location in Glendon Street there. It's an extra 20 metres to the toilet. So the two issues were raised was that it's a little bit further from the Glendon Street Cafe and it's further from the toilets. It's been measured. It's only 20 metres extra from the toilets and it's 50 metres. So it's not even half a block to the cafe from there. One of the things that we did talk about is that it's not undercover. So we'll ask the team to look at whether it's undercover. Different discussions with different people from the bus company has given different answers. So at the moment, our answer to council is that we are proposing that the bus set down will remain there. It's used a couple of times a week. And one of the things that we did discuss is that if people in a wheelchair have to travel 50 metres, then people can walk 50 metres to get a coffee, in my opinion. So I think it's a compromise. It's not a long distance. I think it's a reasonable solution for them. So, but Alan will go back directly to purses and make sure that we have passed that information through. But we have had different discussions with different members of that organisation, and my understanding is that one is supportive and one has asked us to look at those couple of issues. So.
Yeah, thank you, GM. Look, I think we've got Councillor Potter needs to go at 10:45 for a short break, Councillor Potter. So I think we'll wrap this one up. Morning tea's probably overdue. Lynelle, we have the recommendation there that the council or the committee note the attached Kingroy Transformation Project update report for information. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Second, thank you, Councillor Jones. Speakers for or against? Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. I'll now move that we adjourn the meeting until 11 a.m. Do we have a second? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. See everyone back here at 11 a.m. Okay, I'll now welcome everyone back and move that we reopen the meeting. Do we have to move that, Lynelle, of course? Yes. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Also note that Councillor Potter is absent. Meeting resuming at 11:10 a.m. with Councillor Potter being absent for an appointment. Okay. Right, where are we up to? So we're up to item 7.1, which is at page 92, and it's now my pleasure to welcome Councillor Froloff to present the Local Disaster Management Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report.
Thank you, Mayor. The following are the current and planned works, updated as of the 17th of June 2021. The capital works for 2021 and current water main replacements are as follows. KTP, Alfred Street Water Main Replacement, Haley Street, Hodge to Scott Street, Trunk Residential Water Main Replacement, Regional, replacing of 1,000 water metres, Class A Recycled Water Facility in Wando, construction of the new Class A Recycled Water Facility at Wando, and the SCADA and cyber security updates, replace existing SCADA and regionalise the system, and Gordon Brook Dam spillway design underway. Restrictions and dam levels as of the 17th of June. All towns still remain on level 3 water restrictions. Hang on. Council continues to monitor water storage throughout the region and current levels are as follows. Bunduma Dam 25.9, BP Dam 7.3, Gordon Brook Dam 62 and Boobaya Dam 33. water allocations and financial year consumption as of the 18th of the 6th, 2021 will be tabled, and you'll be able to find that on our website after today's meeting. Reactive work will also be tabled and on our website. And reactive works year to date. Council staff have attended 129 sewer requests this financial year, and council staff have attended 1,084 water requests this financial year. And completed capital works for noting are as follows. Kingaroy sewer relining. Sewer relining started in July and has been completed. Youngman Street North, Kingaroy, the trunk water main replacement. Reen Street, Kingaroy, the residential water main replacement. Replacement of the reservoir roof at Scott Street, Wandai. Sewer relining for regional and replacement of the reservoir roof and Arana in Kingaroy also being completed. And that is my portfolio for water and wastewater, and I'd like to have it accepted, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Froelich. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Speakers in relation to the report? Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the report, Councillor Froelich. Just a couple of observations and a question. On page 94, we've got the allocations. In the Proston water supply, there's an allocation, was 500 megalitres. They used 328.7, and there's a remaining 171.3 megalitres on that Proston water supply scheme. And we've had some requests for, well, at least one request for an extension to the scheme, one farm in the Fairdale area. And I've also been advised by some of the farmers in the area, and also I remember that in the last term or the term before, we actually did a lot of upgrade around that Fairdale area, and the pipes are a lot bigger than they were. So there's been an indication that there was some issues with the smaller pipes, but that particular area was upgraded. And I know there's a report coming back, but I just wanted to flag that, and the fact that we've got that excess allocation where we said there was no excess allocation, and also the fact that those pipes were upgraded, that, you know, I'm wanting to flag that we could surely consider putting those extra farmers. I know once you put the one on, it's going to open up some other potential connections, because it's outside that declared water area. But I just wanted to flag that. And also, it's been brought to my attention from some fireys that there's issues around Heisel and because only half of Heisel is on the water scheme, and I know we put in the standpipe for that reason, but the village of Heisel is only half of it has, and they've got non-potable water, but there's half of the village has not got any water at all, apart from if they have tanks. So there's been issues raised with the fires about if there was ever a fire, and apparently there was a fire a few years ago, and the house burnt down because they couldn't get any water quickly enough. And so I just wanted to ensure that in the report that comes back to council that we can that it's considered to put what the cost of the capital upgrade to put the remainder of Heisville village onto that Proston water scheme. Thank you.
Yes, General Manager, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there'll be a report come back to council in the August Standing Committee, which is the declared water areas, and to consider those extensions of schemes. So Tim will consider that. We haven't done a full infrastructure cost to extend the entire network of like, that's a big job for us to go through and work out, you know, if we're going to extend the entire network through a town, if that makes sense. So Tim will provide some advice. Probably the best one for that is we'll provide that report, and then happy to probably take some questions or if there's a shortfall in information there, but there will be costings come back to upgrade that infrastructure to supply within the scheme, and if the scheme was extended. With regards to the fire, like any rural town, I suppose, councillor, like if there's no reticulation network, then the fire is dealt with as you know, if there was a fire at your property, if that makes sense. So there's either a water network there or there isn't. If we were looking to extend the entire network through into Highsville, Tim and his team would have to have a look at what that would cost. But that could be a considerable amount of work. But I might let Tim just comment on that and just on the allocations, if I might, Mr. Mayor, just to answer for Kathy. Yep.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So that report, as GM Meehan said, is coming in August. There has been some scope looked at in extending the it's a rural reticulation inside Hydesville. Just to upgrade, put that reticulation in place, it's just not that cost, it's actually the cost of the reservoirs. So, as you were saying, councillor, they did some upgrades around the Fairdale Road area there, but it's a supply issue. It's not. You've got a lot of small pipes. That is correct. You've got some upsized pipes, and that is correct. But you have only got the same reservoir that you started with in the first place, and that's where it triggers the upgrades. And this is all detailed in this report that's coming to council. As a rough indicator, you're talking in the millions and up to around 11 just to do the Hydesville, roughly. But yeah, I just got off the phone to our water engineer just to see what those figures were. Regarding the allocations, you're correct, councillor. The Proston Water's final position will probably be about 360 megs that they've used for the year, because this is not a complete financial year water usage. So that does theoretically give them excess capacity there. But our water allocations for the South Burnett Regional Council is a regional allocation. So what happens every time there's an offtake off the Boonuma pipeline, you must have some sort of nominal allocation. So in the case of Proston and Proston Water and Proston Rural, it's not nominal allocation, it's 500. Kingaroy is 1110, Blackbutt 250. But overall, it's managed as an overall scheme. So our total allocation is 1825 normally. You'll see on that table it says 1875, and the reason that is that at the beginning of this month we got notification from Sunwater that we were going to exceed our allocation, and which is not permissible. So we actually had to go and buy another 50 megs of high priority water to balance the scheme out, the scheme being the whole regional area. So we must come under that 1825 or buy additional allocation. So it's one thing to say, well, that water is nominated for there, but we can actually use that as balancing for the rest of the schemes. So you'll have, it's like everything, you'll have unders and overs. Next year, Kingaroy might be way down, and so we'll use that, the excess allocation that they haven't used, to balance out on the other. Does that answer the question?
Councillor?
It does, but I just think that in fairness to the Hydesville people and to the Proston Rural Water Scheme, that original allocation in Wandai Shire was the 500, and that was to manage that scheme. So for us to say, well, you know, those people around Fairdale, that there's no capacity, when in reality there is within that scheme. I know that this is a region, but that rural water scheme it's non-potable water, and I just think that it needs to be looked at carefully what we can do with those farmers, and also, as I said, the Heisel one. And when you say millions, you're talking about an upgrade to the actual storage. So are we just going to sit on our hands forever, like into the future with villages like Highsville? Or do we need to at least, as part of our whole forward-thinking council, do the work, find out what it will cost, and put it in the mix so that even in 10, 15 years or something, it gets into a program, so that at some stage, or if there's some grant for small community water infrastructure, that we actually have that project shovel ready. I just think, in fairness to the Highsville community and to the people that that were part of that whole Proston Rural Water Scheme, that is the very least that we can do. So as such, I would like to move that a report be back to...
Councillor, we'll just have to
Sorry.
put that aside
Sorry,
for the time
okay.
being. We've got this one, this motion at hand, so we're just speaking to this motion and raising questions in relation to the report at this stage. So you'll give the opportunity to do that later on. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, General Manager. Further speakers to the report? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question. So, I know I, regularly talk about this, but the subtotal, so your water allocations and final year consumption, page 94, it concerns me, and I understand these would have been June figures at the 18th of June, that there was only 5% actual capacity left in our remaining allocations. So my question is, and I know it was identified in the National Water Infrastructure Development Fund options analysis, that there's more work that needs to be done around future allocations, but what is the actual desired contingency that we should have there? Like 5% for me seems to be very fine. Like, is there model rules or a model sort of standard in which for urban water supply that we should have, like a target there? It's great that we're not paying for lots of water that we're not using. I understand that, but it worries me, if the season had have been different and we hadn't have had some of those minor inflows that have helped prop us up. Like, it's great to see Gordon Brook up around that 60%, 62% raw water storage. But yeah, I guess my question is, like, in terms of strategy for urban water, is 5%, like, are we comfortable with that? And when do we start having more conversations, I guess, around the strategy to adjust or our allocations into the future, to advocate for more allocation into the future? That's probably my question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in answer to the question, 5% is very, very, very tight. I would be a heck of a lot more comfortable with 10% up our sleeve. And to be fair, so we've gone over this time, and as you can see, we're very lucky in the instance that we actually had some high priority water that was available this year. We actually found a person that was not going to use their allocation. It was a significant cost to council to buy it, but yeah, if we didn't, then we were looking down the barrel of fines because we've exceeded our contract. Yeah, fined for overuse of allocation, sorry.
Thank you, Manager. Manager, just in relation to, on that point, HPW on Blackbutt, is that likely, we can see there where we've gone over by the 130 megs approximately, is that likely to happen again this next financial year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we're going to be having early conversations with the irrigators this year. To be honest, we actually did talk to them last year, and once the usage was going up, they really fell in line with what we requested. So we're going to get in early this year. I've actually got some letters drafted up and want to go and talk to the irrigators about the usage for the future.
Yeah, look, it is certainly represents the case, though, doesn't it, that we need to continue to pursue water for the Blackbutt irrigators, suitable irrigation water in accordance with the options analysis from Jacobs on the NWIDF study. because it certainly is having a negative impact on our available allocation for the rest of the region, or for not the rest of the region, but certainly for those other communities identified there. Looks as though Kingaroy is going to come in spot on target. If we were to look at its allocation of 1,110 megalitres, it looks as though with 4% of the year remaining at that point in time, 5% allocation left, we're probably going to come in spot on there. Tim, would that be correct? Which is, again, a little bit nerve-wracking.
You're correct, Mr Mayor. It will come in fairly well spot on, but it is, if the Gordon Brook wasn't as usable, we would have gone over. So it is largely seasonal, depending on what our other storages are doing. It is very close, and you're certainly right. We need to be chasing more allocation.
And of course, that's what's been identified in that study, in the water feasibility study, an integrated solution that provides for additional agricultural water alongside providing greater security moving forward for Kingaroy's urban water supply, particularly in relation to agricultural processing industries and our capacity to be able to grow jobs, industry in Kingaroy as value-adding jobs to food processing, not to mention other industries, but specifically in relation to agriculture. We certainly need to secure additional allocation. So we'll continue to pursue that with the state and federal government as a matter of priority on behalf of the organisation moving forward. Okay, no one else has got their light on. Look, I just reference GM in 93, page 93, just in terms of that spillway design work and Gordon Brook Dam. Now, we all know the history on this, that, you know, it's a regulated requirement that we upgrade the spillway at Gordon Brook Dam. How are we tracking in terms of the expected completion on that spillway design? Is that going to plan? I see that we've got in there for it was to be completed in June 21. Still further work to be done, or just probably an update on how that's tracking?
Yeah, so that design there, Mr Mayor, is the first of the feasibility options for the spillway. So there is further money being allocated in the budget to move into more detailed design. So Tim and his team are almost completed that. Probably when that work is complete, Mr Mayor, we can probably give an update on the feasibility of that at a future standing committee when that work is complete in either August or September. Which is, that's not a detailed design element, that's around, okay, here's your option A and B, and here's what you recommend it will be to give us some ground truthing to move us forward. So we can bring that, when that work is complete, we would be happy to bring that into a committee as a fact sheet and run through it if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, thanks, GME. And I just, so when you say we've got money in the budget for design, is that the 375 in this current year budget? Yep, I note that. Look, just on that note then, in relation to that matter, so at this stage in the draft budget, we've got 11.8 million. I assume there's been no update until we get further design feasibility work done in relation to that. I know in the past we said it could be between 12 and 17, but at this stage we're still looking at that 11.8. I know that in the budget we've got 800,000 proposed as borrowings in 22-23, 5 million in 23-24, and another 6 million then in 24-25, which would be a total of 11.8, as you're saying, to do that work, subject to that feasibility analysis. So look, again, just council's got borrowings at the moment of 33.5 million. By my calculations, the total repayment of that loan will come in around 15.1 million, which once we pay interest of 3.3 million, which is at 2%, maybe a little bit less if we can get a lower interest rate of perhaps 1.6 from QTC. Nonetheless, we're going to be tracking up in the high 14s, close to 15 million in terms of total spend. I am concerned that, as I've said before, that this will certainly upgrade the spillway to meet the government's regulatory standards. However, as we've said, won't provide one additional drop of water. And I've got to say that in my view, I'll say again, it would be unconscionable for us, I believe, to burden future generations with that debt. And I do believe, as other mayors have shared with me in recent times, their view is, and my view is, at least personally, that this bill should rest fairly and squarely with the government. It provides no benefit to us. It's borrowings of having to pay $15 million back to QTC, in my view, will take 20 years, as we see, potentially 20 years, and could burden the current and future generations with something that I believe should be the government's responsibility, and I continue to advocate on that basis. Look, I suppose I'd just give notice that I would be, again, wanting to raise this issue at the special budget meeting on the 14th of July, as to perhaps considering other options that council may have appetite for, in noting that, because I've just been watching some of the commentary from the other mayors in other regional councils, and they're certainly not prepared to commit themselves financially to funding this, on the basis that, not fully at least, that they are reaching out, the other mayors are reaching out to the government and saying, you need to chip in and provide some assistance on this. I'd like to see us join forces with the other councils and the other mayors to provide some state advocacy around this, because I think it's unfair, quite frankly, to burden our community with something that we have no control over. So I just wanted to make that observation again, and probably just mention that in advance of the next of the budget meeting. Okay, all right. Well, anyone else wish to speak to the report? If not, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Right, so we're tracking quite well. We're now up to 8.1, which is questions on notice at 98. Oh, sorry, Councillor, I forgot about you. Yes, go ahead. Okay, please proceed.
I want to move a resolution that a report be brought back to, and I'd be advised by the team, that to a standing committee, whatever date, I was thinking October, standing committee outlining the scope and cost of works to connect the remaining properties in the village of Heisel to the Proston Rural Water Scheme.
Okay, so we'll just get that down, Councillor.
I have, yeah.
Can you provide that to Lynelle? Thank you, so we can all see that. Thank you.
So you,
Are our screens offline?
There is an issue with the screens.
So we have an issue with our screens? Can we get it up on the big screen, Lynelle?
through you, Mr. Mayor, just talking with Tim, we can aim to have that for the August report as part of that program, because it's coming back to a standing
if
committee.
that's doable.
We will do our best to make that.
Yeah.
Our understanding is that it's already done.
Right,
So we'll
thank
just
you.
do a
Excellent.
review of the REITs.
Okay, so that work's already been happening well in advance. Thank you very much. Okay, so Councillor, if you can just guide Lynelle through that. Oh, very good.
Mr. Mayor, just talking with Tim, that should be fine, and just it'll be a matter of how much more detail council wants after that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
No, I think if we aim for August, and then if council wants more detail after that, then we can go from there, if that's okay. I think that'll tick your box, if that.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, do we have a seconder? Seconder, anyone prepared to second that? Okay, Councillor Froloff, thank you. Speakers for or against? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly I look forward to the report. I probably also want to understand, so just, according to the 2016 census, Hyattsville has a population of around 169 people. So I probably just want to understand what the population and industry growth of Hyattsville has been up until 2021 and is projected to be into the future that would warrant like a spend like this. If it's around that $11 million, I probably want some more information around what the actual residents, how many residences are in Hyattsville that are connected, and how many more would we be connecting, and certainly what is the population growth for Hyattsville projected at that would warrant a spend. I think you said, up to $11 million. I take that figure on, that it's rubbery and could change, but significant spend. So as the Mayor has indicated time and time again, cash is tight. So really want to understand probably more to that story. I think there's much more to that story than just, what those remaining properties are. Thank you.
So, Manager, can we take councillor's request on board and perhaps provide some data in relation to that?
Yeah, through
At
Mr.
least
Mayor.
as data that's at hand at this point in time that we can get access to?
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, we've just made some notes that we'll include what we can in the report, and then probably what we'll do is welcome any questions from council post the report if you want further info. We'll look to include some population numbers. There's probably two key things for the scheme out in that area is the cost to expand, but also the investment that we require to. Proston Rural coming up is a large maintenance scheme for us in renewals. So Tim's brought that with council in the past. So we'll just look to do that. What we've tried to do with the declared area report is have Anthony and Steve come in and talk through and provide information to council of how that actually works so that you can understand. And then I think, yeah, we'd definitely be happy to do further work if council directs us to after that, if that's okay.
Okay, any other speakers on the motion before we go? Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, thank you. I think some of that factual information so we can do the cost benefit analysis. What would the cost per connection be and what would the outcome of that be for that area? So that's probably where I'm thinking. I know we talked a lot about that with QTC, the importance of cost benefit analysis when we look at projects like this, so that we can weigh up all of those factors. So I look forward to some more information about that.
Yes, thank you, councillor. Okay, if there's no further speakers, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Right, we've got one further item on the agenda at 8.1, which is at page 98. Questions on notice from the previous meeting. Okay, so you can see the questions there. There are 3 of those up on the big screen. Okay, so question 1. Bassingthwaites Road. General Manager Meehan, could you provide us with a response for Councillor Henson? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I believe the councillor's question of which sections of Bassingthwaites, I'll go with that, Bassingthwaites Road was being graded. Kevin has just advised there with John is that southern end is about 800 metres and the northern end is about 700. So, yep.
Thank you. And question, happy with that, Councillor Henson? Comfortable with that? Thank you. Update on programs and activities to encourage locals into the businesses during the disruptive period of the KTP. Councillor Shoemaker's question. General Manager, thank you.
Yeah, if we could just probably note the KTP report, Mr. Mayor. So basically Alan's provided an update there and we look forward to working with the divisional councillors on developing a forward program each month for council and the CCRG of trying to really improve in this area. So I look forward to that.
Thank you, GM. And the third question, whole of life expectation in relation to Wandoria Industrial Estate works and length of condition, value of the road network, impact on depreciation going forward, and impact on our asset management planning. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just if I could get council to note that we provide that information at the general meeting as part of the asset management thing. So again, it was good questions and what we're trying to do is make sure we tie them up at the relevant time so that council's got the information. So
yeah, duly noted and certainly was provided. Thank you very much, General Manager. Much appreciated. Okay, so we have the recommendation that the responses to the question raised be received and noted. We have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Second, Councillor Duff. Speakers, otherwise we go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Now, unless there's any further business, I believe that we are done. So we'll now look to close the meeting. Madam Acting CEO, anything from you? Nothing for this stage. Thank you. So I'll call the meeting closed at 11:41 a.m. Thank you all for your participation.